Kevin King on lands. It looks like they are deep into game one. So let's
Still
take a
in
look
game one.
and see what we have going on. It looks like we have counterbalance and top for Joe. Kevin has a Boseiju along with a whole bunch of lands on the battlefield. He does already have a Dark Depths and a Thespian Stage, though.
And a Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale. So Kevin King really has a lot of his stuff online. Joe Lossett has a lot of his stuff online too. The one thing that Joe would really like to see is something like a Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It looks like Joe Lossett has a Cavern on Wizard, which will allow him to resolve cards like Vendane Click, Snapcaster Mage, and Venser are all wizards.
And this Boseiju is going to be a little bit of a problem for Joe. He's got his counterbalance locked, but Boseiju is able to cut right through that.
Let's see if we make a 20-20. We do. Kevin is going to go for it and make a 20-20 on Joe's end step. He's also going to Punishing Fire Joe. And Kevin does have a Riftstone Portal in his graveyard, so he is able to tap all of those cards for mana. Now, Tabernacle does destroy.
And Wrath of Merit Lage is
indestructible. He is going to go ahead and attack Joe. Let's see if Joe has a Terminus on top of his deck.
Or an Entreat the Angels.
Yeah, or an Entreat the Angels.
Entreat the Angels would be quite nice.
All right, there is the Terminus. That is going to get rid of them.
But as you can see, this isn't really a long-term solution for Joe because Kevin is going to be able to use Boseiju to ensure that his Life from the Loam resolves and then just do it all over again next turn.
And because he has that Exploration, he can play both Dark Depths and Thespian Stage in the same turn. So basically, he's just going to be able to make a 20-20 every turn from here on out.
And this is one of the, or I have to imagine maybe this is actually the only matchup where Miracles isn't favored in the Supreme late game.
Kevin is going to take a couple points of damage, use his Boseiju to get back Thespian Stage, Dark Depths, and another land. Going to play the Dark Depths in the Thespian Stage, pass the turn back to Joe. Joe is going to have, able to play his top again and see if he can find an answer to this 20-20, but Kevin is just going to keep making them.
Yeah, what Joe really needs here is, again, a Jace the Mind Sculptor so that he can keep refueling his hand and not run out of gas and potentially even start to Fate Seal Kevin and threaten ultimating it in order to win the game. Vendilion Click certainly isn't going to do it with those 3 Maze of Ist and Prelate.
So Kevin is using a Wasteland here on Joe's end step. I think he's targeting one of Joe's fetch lands.
And this is basically Kevin, he just wants to decrease Joe's ability to activate Sensitive Divining Top, shuffle his library, activate Sensitive Divining Top, shuffle his library. Just wants to cut Joe off from his ability to just dig through his deck.
Yeah, he might even port the other fetch land here. Looks like that's what he's doing. All right, Joe is going to top.
And here we go again.
Oh, it looks like he ported an island, not a fetch land. We got another 20-20. Joe is going to look at the top and then top. He's going to cast another Terminus.
And Kevin just says, okay, that's fine. I'm going to do this all over again next turn.
Now Kevin is at 8, so he can't Boseiju Loam too many more times. But he did just have another copy, another Thespian Stage Dark Depths in his hand to play. So this is just going to be relentless 20-20 after 20-20 after 20-20. Kevin is going to port a Plains in Joe's upkeep. Joe's going to draw a card for the turn.
And you can really see that Joe is just barely holding on. He's only got 1 card in hand, Doesn't have his top in play.
Looks like Joe is going to Snapcaster Mage a Brainstorm and play the Brainstorm. He's going to redeploy that Divining Top.
And the Snapcaster Mage really is just a fresh copy of Brainstorm. It's unlikely to do very much. It can just get Punishing Fired. If it tries to attack, there's Maze of Ith. And if it stays in play, Joe has to pay a mana every upkeep for Tabernacle Pendrell Veil.
All right, so Kevin is going to use Punishing Fire on Joe's end step. Joe is going to fetch out a Volcanic Island, falling to 11. It's like he still has just Force of Will in hand, so he's going to need to find something to stop this 2020. Flood Strand's not going to be it. He's going to make a 2020 on Joe's end step.
You know, and I really appreciate Kevin King's pace of play. These are untimed rounds, but he is still trying to sequence through these things as fast as possible. I don't know if he has work early tomorrow morning or if he's just really hungry and wants dinner, but I really appreciate the, he's going through this stuff as fast as he can.
So do I. All right, Kevin has the 2020. He's going to attack. Do we have another Terminus? Another Terminus for Joe Lossett. That's going to be 3 turns in a row. Kevin is going to go ahead and fall to 6 so that he can Life from the Loam yet again.
Now, this might be a good opportunity for him to not activate the Boseiju because he knows that there's a Sensitive Divining Top on top of Joe's library.
And Joe only had 2 mana available. He could be worried of that actual card Counterspell.
Yeah.
Let's see if, I believe Joe plays. Yeah, he has no copies of Counterspell in his main this week.
Well, he could also be afraid of a Brainstorm rearranging the top 3 cards of the library in response, which I believe Joe does actually have access to as the 1 card in his hand.
Or Spell Snare.
Yep.
It looks like there's a Swords to Plowshares in the top, so Joe is going to have another turn of stopping this 2020.
So that'll stop the 2020, but it will give Kevin King 20 life, which is pretty important considering the way Boseiju works. Every time Kevin King taps Boseiju for mana, he loses 2 life, and that's basically why we see him at 6, and why this reactivating Dark Depths over and over and over again to make this Wrath of the Merit Lage token is a good strategy, and he's going to be able to probably run Joe out of gas, but at some point Kevin King will have to stop doing it if he doesn't gain some life. So the various tricks with Sensei's Divining Top are sometimes you can tap it to draw a card and then in response rearrange the top 3, and you can also have the option to rearrange the top 3 and in response draw a card, which is what Joe Lossett did in that particular instance.
And now he has a copy of Jace the Mind Sculptor.
And this is a way that Joe can at least try to keep pace with this Dark Depths.
Now Punishing Fire should just be able to kill Jace. There's a counterbalance on top, which is going to counter the Punishing Fire.
Joe has set this up perfectly, doing everything he can to try to protect this Jace.
So he's going to make a 2020 now.
What kind of token do you think he made?
A Merit Lage. A Jerry Thompson. All right, we're going to get a Dredge on Life from the Loam.
And I wonder how many cards are in Kevin King's library. He may be starting to run out. There's a small chance that Joe just needs to hold out for a little longer. It would be phenomenal if Joe actually just decked Kevin King. That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at Jerry. He's looking buff. He's been going to the Tarmo gym.
He has been going to the Tarmo gym. The other thing to note here is that Joe only has 2 white sources. So there might be a situation where Kevin waits until he's able to port down both of Joe's white sources in his main phase and then make the 2020.
That is a great idea.
So rather than just jamming the 2020 every turn, we take a turn off so that we can set up, take a couple turns off so we can set up 2 ports and keep Joe off of white mana.
I wonder what the most number of times Kevin King has made a Wrath of Merit Lage token in a matchup and have it not be good enough. Seems like he's been doing this over and over and over again, and Joe Lossett has just barely been able to hold on.
I wonder if it would have behooved Kevin to try and punishing fire away that Jace with the brainstorm ability on the stack.
Yeah, he might have been able to sneak it out. We know that counterbalance was on top of the library previously, but then Joe drew it. So there might have been a window.
Here's a Divining Top. All right, so we've got another white source there and that Flooded Strand.
And you're talking about that white mana. It looks like Joe...
just going to make another 2020 on your end step.
Why not? If at first you don't succeed, try again.
It's going to fall to 24. All right, Punishing Fire is going to be countered by the counterbalance that Joe is floating on top of his deck. He's going to draw a card. Going to go to our combat step. Do we have something? He's going to look at the top 3. There's
I saw another Terminus.
The 4th Terminus.
The 4th Terminus. Oh, man.
Joe's going to find another Terminus and take care of this 2020 again for the, was it 5th turn in a row? All right, now we get the Punishing Fire.
Yep.
There's a top on top. Punishing Fire is finally going to take care of the Jace.
And that is a big win for Kevin King.
Thespian Stage Dark Depths, go.
Now, if I had to guess, I think the Wrath of Merit Lage token is going to win on Kevin King's next turn.
Well, Joe still gets to look at some cards because he has that Flooded Strand.
Yeah,
so he might find another answer for it.
I agree, but I got a feeling. I think this is going to be the turn.
You don't
feel it in my bones.
You don't think that the miracle is going to be? There's a source to Plowshares. You don't think the miracle is
Really?
going to be there
Oh
6
my God.
turns in a row?
Joe's like, I can do this all night. No big deal.
Look at that smile.
Imagine this was in the Swiss. Oh, man, it'd be ugly.
Oh, I guess that wasn't a source to Plowshares.
Okay.
He's going to fetch it away. There's a Tundra. Joe's library is looking pretty thin there, too.
Do you think Kevin's trying to deck Joe?
Likely not. All right, well, we're going to get another look here with the top.
And now Joe looks to be out of fetch lands, which is a pretty big deal. And this is what happens. You get to this late game scenario, and lands just forces Joe to have an answer for Merit Lage over and over and over again.
Just supreme redundancy.
It's not a fast engine, but it is an engine.
I think that I would have ported a white mana in Joe's main phase there to make him entreat now if entreat's what he's planning on doing. All right.
I think this
We're
is the
going to
turn.
attack now.
What you got? I think Joe's got a brainstorm he can fire off to dig 1 card deeper.
He's going to draw a card. Look at the top 3. We have
A Vendilion Click?
a Vendilion
A
Click.
Chump Blocker?
Oh, but the top's on top now. Oh, so he was able to rearrange it so that there's a
Right.
2 on top.
Yep. So punishing fire can't really, or probably can't be used to kill this Van Dillen click.
He has the Beseju, so he can.
Oh, that's right.
He can kill it.
Good
All right.
call. Wow.
Kevin King.
I knew that would be the turn. I had a feeling.
I could tell.
Kevin King is going to take game 1 after 36 minutes against Joe Lossett. Lands versus Miracles. Let's take a look at their sideboard so we can see how we think that Kevin's going to change his deck up for this match. So he has 4 copies of Croson Grip, 1 Bajuka Bog, 1 Karakas, 2 Tireless Tracker, 4 Sphere of Resistance, 2 copies of Boil, 1 Chalice of the Void. What do we think Kevin's going to bring in?
So I think Kevin's going to be bringing in the 4 Croson Grips for sure. They're great against not only the counterbalance, but also the rest in pieces that Joe's likely to be bringing in. I think you can also make a good argument for Boil. Seems pretty good against the Miracles deck. And then I could see him also bringing in Chalice of the Void. Just having a Chalice on 1, especially when he's on the play, can really disrupt the Brainstorms and Senses Divining Tops and Swords to Plowshares that Joe really relies on.
I can see that. Now on the Miracles side, we've got 1 Swords to Plowshares, 2 Moat, 2 Wear Tear, 1 Kozilek's Return, 1 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Back to Basics, and 3 Flusterstorm. What do we think that Joe's going to bring in?
Joe definitely needs to have some number of Swords to Plowshares in his deck. I don't know if he needs the extra one out of his sideboard, but that could be a card that we see. I think he'll definitely bring in the Wear Tear to get rid of the explorations and whatnot that allow Kevin to accelerate his game plan. And then Rest in Peace and Back to Basics are going to be some of the particularly good cards in the matchup.
I can definitely see all of those. Now, looking at this lands deck, I have a quick question for you before we take a look at something else. So
Sure.
there's a card in Eldritch Moon called Stunning Regrowth.
Oh, yeah.
3 colorless, 1 green.
Yep.
I think this
you
has
get to
modern
put
applications
all
too.
land cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield. And I believe they come and play tapped, but I'm not
Still
not
really
100%
nice with
sure.
Life from the Loam.
Do you think this is something that might be adopted in the lands deck?
I think it could be adopted in the lands deck. It does a similar role as Explore. It happens later, which, acceleration in the mid game isn't usually something that you want as much as acceleration in the early game. But it could have some applications in the land decks for sure. I mean, we saw there Kevin had filled his graveyard full of lands, and he's loaming and loaming and loaming to get all of his stuff back into play. But if he just played this card and just took his graveyard and just essentially put the whole thing into play, I'm going to be a powerhouse play.
I could see that. I could see that for sure. I think it might have a lot of potential. Now, you saw there, Kevin had an MTG First shirt on.
Yep.
Joe has the Nerd Rage Gaming shirt on.
Yep. The teams are real.
The teams are real. However, if you would like to represent StarCityGames.com, you can get the official SCG shirt at go.starcitygames.com/apparel. 50% cotton, 50% polyester, 100% amazing. Screen printed in the USA. I cannot guarantee that you will be as cool as Tom Ross if you wear one of these shirts, but heck, just look at him. Don't you want to try?
I try to be like Tom Ross in literally every way that I can.
Literally, are you going to cut your hair that short?
I mean, I'm trying to do backflips, so,
Mostly I just fall on my shoulders, but,
So these are, again, the official shirt of StarCityGames.com, and you can find them. Go.starcitygames.com/apparel. Get yours today. So as we wait here, looks like Kevin is going to go use the restroom. Let's learn a little bit more about Joe Lossett.
I'll tell you what, he is an absolutely great player.
He's
basically the Miracles master.
He is on Team Nerd Rage Gaming. He is 36 years young from Redlands, California. He has 21 open top 8s now with 5 wins, 2 invitational top 8s, and he follows StarCraft 2 as closely as he follows Magic. He was a varsity rower for the University of Colorado and a huge Star Wars fanatic. So you are also a StarCraft 2 fan.
Oh, StarCraft is a beautiful game.
So do you play Terran, Zerg, or whatever the other one is?
Protoss.
Yeah, that one.
I've historically been a Protoss player. I've been the last couple times I played a little bit of Terran just because I really like the multi-pronged harass you get to do. Terran is a race where basically all of their units are really good in small numbers. So if you're operating in a way where you have a lot of different small battles across essentially the battlefield, you're advantaged in that situation. You really get to tax your opponent's APMs.
So they're good at going wide.
Yeah, they're good at going wide. That's a good way of
They're the goblins of...
Well, they're good at going wide, but if you have a lot of stuff, it's not always good to have it in a ball. So it's like you want to be wide and multi-pronged. So there's a little bit more finesse and micromanagement to it. But it's really, really fun. It really, stresses out your fingers and your ability to have all the hotkeys memorized and not, fat fingered your keyboard. But
So would you say it's like playing like 5 games of Magic all at once?
yeah, and really fast.
And really fast. So it's not like a Miracles versus Lance match. Not saying it's slow.
Well,
but
there is I guess a little bit of an analog. A lot of times in StarCraft 2, you don't have time to think about everything that you really should. You have to sort of go off of your instincts because it's almost better to do something quickly rather than like stop playing the game and think about it. And I think there's an analog to that with this lands deck because we see Kevin King's pace of play, and he's typically flawless with his play, but he's very, very fast. And if you want to avoid getting draws in a deck that has rather lengthy mechanics to operate its plays, you're in a similar situation where you don't really have the luxury to stop playing and think about what you want to do frequently. You just kind of have to know what you're supposed to do and instinctively do it and do it quickly. Otherwise, the clock becomes an issue and you have to worry about draws. Is that way more of a response than you were expecting?
Maybe.
I love Magic, I love StarCraft 2, and have constantly thought about the strange parallels that you get between the two games because even though on face value they're so different, I feel like a lot of times as you get into various competitive games, if you get into them on a deep level, you start finding these themes that are consistent in all these other really competitive games when you get to the high level also.
That is game theory, my friend.
Yeah, that is game theory.
That is game theory. Now,
and people are studying that. I have a friend who goes to NYU, and he's taking a class on StarCraft 2. He emailed me his syllabus. I was so pumped.
Oh, a StarCraft 2 class? I thought you were talking about game theory. I'm like, yeah, there are classes. Like, I took an online class for game theory.
Yeah, well, it was a game theory class, but it was one semester completely focused on StarCraft 2.
So there are StarCraft classes. I know there are Harry Potter classes where you can learn about the lore of the Harry Potter world. When are we going to have a Magic the Gathering class in college? There is so much lore in this multiverse. There is so much depth to the game.
It's true.
It should be a college course.
It's true. Well,
maybe Tulare Community College can actually start it.
If only there was somewhere you could go to read things about Magic. If only.
If only.
Yeah.
If only there was a website where you could read things about Magic, purchase Magic apparel and Magic cards.
Mm-hmm. I wonder where we could find.
Thankfully, there is. It is StarCityGames.com.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of reading stuff on Magic, have you ever read Patrick Chapin's book?
I read the first one. I did not read the second one.
Okay, I read the second one was Next Level Deck Building.
Yes.
I believe. Yeah, that's the one that I have. It's quite good. Anyone out there who wants to have a deeper understanding of Magic and game theory in general, Patrick Chapin's books were pretty nice read.
I use the Mold Drifters and Baneslayers analogy in every type of game that I talk about, whether it's board games, card games, or whatever. It's just like Mold Drifters and Baneslayers is just a perfect analogy to explain game theory in general to Magic players that aren't that in-depth into game theory.
Magic truly is the best game, and if you can be great at Magic, you can really be just about good at anything.
All right. Joe Lossett is going to start off here with a Sensei's Divining Top. Kevin is going to play a Mox Diamond, discarding a Riftstone Portal, and we're going to see a Gamble. This is likely going to hit either Life from the Loam or Boil. As we saw earlier in the tournament, Kevin was able to go find a Boil and cast it with Beseiju very early against a Miracles opponent.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
I believe that was Joe Lossett.
Yeah, I was just going to say, wasn't that Joe Lossett? Yeah, I almost forgot. This is a rematch from the Swiss.
And that game ended on turn 4.
Joe needs to regain his honor here. There's a lot on the line.
All right. Gamble, my favorite card. What are we going to get?
It is a sweet one.
What's going to get discarded? Is it the card that he looked for? You will never really know.
If a boil hits the graveyard, Joe's got to feel like such a surge of luck.
6. What do we got? Exploration.
Hey, that's certainly something that Kevin would probably want in his hand.
Yeah, that might have been it. Oh, it looks like there's a boil in his hand. And there's
And
the
the Boseiju!
Boseiju already.
History does repeat itself. Oh my.
There's the rest in peace. All right.
So this is a nice play against Kevin. Joe's basically saying to Kevin, if you're going to wreck my strategy, I'm going to wreck yours.
It's still going to be an uphill battle, although Kevin does have a copy of Croson Grip in his hand, so he can either use that to take care of the Rest in Peace or the Sensei's Divining Top. Ooh, Joe is going to top in his upkeep and not play a land. I wonder if he
this
has
boil could be
islands.
good.
I wonder if he has islands that he's sandbagging for the boil, or if he just doesn't have lands.
Well, I hope he has either islands or Force of Wills in his hand, because if he doesn't have either, he's going to be in some big trouble.
All right, well, Croson Grip here is going to hit either top or Rest in Peace. Oh, he's going after the top. Yeah, eventually I'll draw into my 2020.
Yep.
Don't you worry.
This might also mean that Kevin is trying to set up a Chalice for 1. By dealing with the top in play and then landing a Chalice, he would be able to lock Joe out of Sensei's Divining Top, which is really one of the cornerstone cards of this Miracles deck.
All right, well, there is a Thespian stage. Here comes a Counterbalance. It does not have another land, though. It's going to go with the boil, though. Uncounterable, going to fall to 15. Going to kill both of Joe's islands.
And a Counterbalance without a Sensei's Divining Top isn't actually that great for Joe. He'd rather have it than not have it, obviously. But Kevin doesn't have a lot of spells to actually cast. And it looks like Kevin actually has a Croson Grip to deal with that Counterbalance at his convenience.
He does have another one. Kevin's going to play his land for the turn.
And it looks like Kevin is trying to decide what he wants to use that Croson Grip on. Rest in Peace and Counterbalance are both good options, but neither of them are actually disrupting his game plan a whole lot at this point. So again, we're seeing these great players over and over and over again not interacting unless they have to. And Kevin is deciding that the most important permanent on Joe's side of the table is Sensei's Divining Top, which I kind of agree with.
All right, so Kevin is going to use that Croson Grip on the Divining Top. He's going to fall to 13. He basically is just a Dark Depths away from taking this game over. There's a Wasteland.
Yeah, and considering Joe doesn't have white mana.
Oh, and Joe's drawn a
That's just
third
another?
Divining
Wow.
Top. He's going to copy either the Forest or the Wasteland with his Thespian stage. So he copied the Forest with the stage. There's a Taiga. Joe's going to
And now
top in
Joe
his
can start
upkeep.
digging for lands.
This has been a real weird game.
This has been kind of a weird one. At least it's been fast and fun, though. We got to
Yes.
see Joe's mana base get wrecked. We got to see Kevin's graveyard get exiled. Things have slowed down a little bit since then, as these players are trying to rebuild after basically getting punched in the face by their opponent.
Kevin's going to fall to 12 using that Wooded Foothills to go get another copy of Taiga.
This could easily be the finals match. We've had so many great players in this top 8. Joe Lossett versus Jeff Hugin could have been the finals too.
I agree.
This has been a really great top 8. A lot of great players.
Ed D'Amico is going to play the winner of this match in our
Yep.
finals. Kevin is looking for some way to find the card Dark Depths.
And I think Ed D'Amico is hoping that somehow both of these decks lose, so he doesn't have to play either of them.
Oh, there's a Tireless Tracker. With a Back to Basics on top is going to counter it.
Whoa.
Oh, no.
So thankfully, Joe doesn't have mana to cast the Back to Basics. At least that's what Kevin's saying.
Oh,
But
wow.
that Tireless Tracker would have been absolutely great.
While he was floating the back to basics to try and counter a Croson grip, he was able to snag a tireless tracker instead.
Pretty sweet
It's
stuff.
a miracle.
It's nice to see tireless tracker in this deck, not only to see it in the deck list, but actually see it get cast and realize that, wow, this card would have been great.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun to see cards from the newer sets actually have an impact on Legacy and get play, even if it is only fringe use.
So Joe is going to top again in his upkeep.
A little shout out to Andrew Cunha, but Andrew Cunha had a really great idea for a Goblin Charbelcher deck that had Tireless Tracker.
Oh, and there's the Dark Depths.
Oh, and this could be it. Joe needs to find
a
white
white
mana right now.
There's a Plains.
Oh, man. He still needs a...
I think he has a plow in his hand.
I think he does have a plow also. Now this is tough. Kevin King, he can try to go for it, but if he fails, those cards get exiled. It's not like he can just loam them back. So it looks like Kevin is choosing to be patient, take his time. He's got to worry about that back to basics though. All Joe needs to do is play one more land and he can cast back to basics while having Source of Plowshares mana open. Or Miracle and Treat mana open also. And another
Croson
Wow.
grip. The back to basics is still floating on top.
Jeez.
Oh, but there's the Boseiju, so it cannot be countered. That's going to take care of the Rest in Peace.
All right, so Kevin King's graveyard is back online. If he can find a life from the loam.
We're going to make a 2020 and make Joe use his Source to Plowshares.
Yep,
Oh, there's a gamble.
that's a good one. That said, I believe that's a 1 mana spell, right?
Yeah, so it can be countered by
countered
top.
by the Divining Top.
All right, Source to Plowshares on the Merit Lage is going to take Kevin up to 30. Let's see if he has Life from the Loam in hand already.
It'd almost be better if it was a 2 mana spell because then at least you could use Boseiju to cast it.
Yeah. He's going to cast Gamble. Using Boseiju here is kind of risky though because that the back to basics can come down.
Yep. And we're seeing the real hate cards come into play. This is a matchup where the sideboard cards matter so much. We've seen Rest in Peace, Croson Grip, and now Back to Basic be some of the real heavy hitters.
And Joe has a second copy of Rest in Peace in his sideboard that he might have brought in here.
Oh yeah, if he brought in one, he definitely brought in two.
All right. The gamble will be countered, and he does have a
Wow.
Life from the Loam, so that's going to get back Dark Depths Thespian Stage. He's going to be able to play them both and pass the turn.
And now the onslaught of Wrath of Merit Lage tokens ensues.
Joe is going to use his Brainstorm here. He does need to find another answer for this 2020.
If Joe's able to find another Source of Plowshares and can land Back to Basics, plus have Source of Plowshares mana open, he's probably going to be able to turn this corner in this game and potentially win. But if he doesn't have all of that right now, things could get dire. This lands deck really puts the Miracles deck to the test. Miracles is so good at controlling what people are doing, and Legacy, it is the premier control deck in the format. And this lands deck is has essentially rose to its prominence because its ability to prey on these Miracles strategies.
It just fights it on a completely different axis than what
Yep.
it's used to.
And we've seen this over and over again where you have a control deck and the way that you go bigger than it is somehow mana related. And this lands deck just gets access to so much mana. It uses its mana base as the core of its proactive plan. And the Miracles, these control strategies, just have a hard time dealing with it.
All right, well, Joe is going to play his Divining Top and activate it here. Let's see if Kevin goes for a 2020 on his end step. Joe's going to play a plains. Pass the turn.
And he's got
Kevin's
another
gonna
resting
make a
piece, but
20-20.
he can't play it. And that's
And
going
that's
to be
gonna
game.
take it.
Kevin Kings, the Lands Master, takes down Joe Lossett, one of the best Miracles player that we have on the Star City Tour. Joe has come so far. He has his own blend of Miracles. He's the shining representative of Nerd Rage Gaming, and he has done so well, like so many other times. But Kevin King, this is a guy we're going to have to take note of. He just took him down in nice fashion. He had good pace of play. All of his cards he played very quickly without making any mistakes. He had very strong